Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If Transmigrated to a Medieval Pokémon World will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if Reincarnated in Bleach as Toshiro Hitsugaya? What if Reborn in Naruto World, continuation? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 291, Conflict with Loki Familia. Wargame against Loki Familia. Of course, Major Familias wouldn't limit themselves to the upper floors of the dungeon. They would venture deep into the 40th floor and beyond. Kazara and the others, being unfamiliar with the dungeon, had done well to reach the lower floors. Lilaruka, seeing them venture beyond the 9th floor despite being level 1, had tried to dissuade them multiple times. But in the end, she had yielded to their overwhelming strength. These girls were nothing like level 1 adventurers. In Lilaruka's eyes, they were even stronger than some level 5 adventurers. So much money! So much money! Hestia's eyes were practically sparkling with Valis signs. Alright, let's go. First, a feast, then we'll go find Soma, Roy said, leading them to the hostess of fertility. Welcome, Roy-sama. Seer, still in her maid outfit, greeted them with a smile. Seer, prepare a feast. We're celebrating. Certainly, Roy-sama. Seer led them to a table and left to make the arrangements. Well. If it isn't the pint-sized goddess. What are you doing here? A teasing voice called out. It's you insufferable oaf. Hestia didn't need to turn around to know who it was. It was Loki, the goddess of the Loki Familia, and Hestia's rival. She was a woman with red hair and an unremarkable figure, known for her flirtatious behavior with the female members of her familia. Roy glanced at Loki's companions. Findame, the captain of the Loki Familia, a Paulum. Despite his youthful appearance, he was over 40 years old and quite powerful. Riveriel Joself, a green-haired elf, the vice-captain of the Loki Familia, and known as the strongest mage. Lafia Voridus, Tione Hiriute, Betloga, and other core members were also present. And lastly, Ace Wallenstein, a human with spirit blood, and one of Aurario's strongest adventurers. While Roy observed them, they were also observing him and his familia. Look at you, pint-sized goddess, hanging out with a bunch of level 1 adventurers. Are these your familia? Loki taunted, her laughter echoing through the tavern. Hestia bristled. Loki, even you can't insult my friends. Roy is a newly descended god, she retorted, hands on her hips. A new god? Loki tilted her head, her gaze fixed on Roy. Is that him? Greetings, Goddess Loki, I am Roy, Roy said, raising his hand in greeting. Loki's eyes narrowed. She didn't recognize him. She didn't remember a god named Roy. But there were countless gods in heaven. She didn't bother dwelling on it. Whatever. I won't argue with you, pint-sized goddess, Loki said, seemingly losing interest, and returned to her table. Hestia fumed but couldn't do anything about it. Don't worry, Hestia. Once our familia becomes stronger, we'll give her a taste of her own medicine, Roy said, comforting her. Hestia's eyes lit up. That's right. We'll show her. Seer brought their food and drinks. Just then. Ha, level 1 adventurers? They're not that impressive, Ace. Betloga, a werewolf with white hair and lightning-shaped markings on his face, scoffed. Ace, having sensed Kazara's strength earlier, had commented on it. But Bet had ridiculed her observation. Bet, sit down. You've had too much to drink, Finn said, frowning. Don't worry, Captain. They're just level 1 adventurers. And that new god, he's just... Before Bet could finish. Swish. A small figure appeared before him. Insult Daddy, and you die. Kohina's red eyes glowed with murderous intent. She had heard Bet's dismissive comment about Roy. Her knives were pressed against Bet's throat. A slight movement, and his head would be separated from his body. The cold steel against his skin made Bet tremble. He sobered up instantly. The Loki Familia stared at Kohina in shock. They hadn't even seen her move. She was too fast. Kohina! Roy called out. Kohina, about to kill Bet, paused. But in that instant, her knives had already pierced his skin, drawing blood. Bet froze, his heart pounding with fear. Since Daddy said to spare you, I won't kill you, Kohina said, retracting her knives, her bloodlust receding. Just as Bet thought he was safe. Swish! 2 intersecting cuts appeared on his chest, forming an X. Ah! Bet screamed and collapsed to the floor. It had happened too fast. Before the Loki Familia could react, Bet had been injured. That's what you get for insulting Daddy, Kohina said with a sweet smile, then returned to Roy's table. The Loki Familia watched her leave, stunned. They didn't dare to stop her. She was too fast. Bet, are you all right? If we don't treat him soon, he'll die. Reveria sighed and began healing Bet. Bang! Loki slammed her hand on the table and stood up, marching towards Roy's table. What do you mean by attacking my familia? She demanded, pointing at Roy. Roy, calmly feeding Kohina, said, Your familia member insulted me, I was being merciful by not killing him. Anyone who insults Daddy dies. Kohina added cheerfully. Loki was speechless. It was true that a god had the right to punish mortals who insulted them. But Bet was her familia, she couldn't just let this go. You're just a newly descended god. A nobody. You have no right to act so arrogantly before me. Loki was a powerful goddess, her familia one of the strongest in Orario. She had never been challenged like this before. Loki, your familia member disrespected Roy. He should be grateful he's still alive. Why are you being unreasonable? Hestia interjected, defending Roy. Humph, pint-sized goddess, this doesn't concern you, Loki sneered, then turned back to Roy, her expression cold. She wasn't going to let this slide. Her familia member had almost been killed. You owe me an explanation. The surrounding adventurers watched with interest, eager to see how the new god would respond. An explanation? Roy was also getting annoyed. Loki was being unreasonable. Did she think he was a pushover? He stood up and faced Loki. Then let's have a war game. Silence. Everyone in the tavern, including the Loki familia, was stunned. Had they heard correctly? This newly descended god wanted to challenge the Loki familia, one of Orario's strongest, to a war game? It was a joke. Roy, don't be impulsive. Hestia exclaimed, shocked. She hadn't expected him to be so reckless. Loki was also surprised. Did this newcomer not know who she was? How could he possibly challenge her to a war game? But despite her confusion, she wouldn't back down from a challenge. Fine, I accept. You set the rules, she said. Roy smirked. A siege battle. The loser forfeits everything to the winner. Loki's eyes narrowed. He only had 5 familia members. Yet he was challenging her to a siege battle, the most disadvantageous type of war game for him? It was practically suicide. She, of course, wouldn't refuse. Very well. 1 month from today. Consider it your last month in Orario. Loki returned to her table and left with her familia. Chapter 292, The Soma Familia Successfully Obtaining Liliruka. After Loki left, whispers filled the tavern. The newly descended god was challenging the Loki Familia, one of Aurario's strongest, to a wargame? And a siege battle, no less. It was the most advantageous scenario for Loki. The news spread like wildfire. Adventurers and even gods discussed the upcoming event with amusement. Everyone was eager to see the spectacle. No one believed the new god could win. The odds were stacked against him. "Roy, you're too impulsive," Hestia said, her voice filled with worry. "Relax. We have a month. And I'm confident I can defeat the Loki Familia," Roy said with a smile and a wave of his hand. "That's right. With my explosion magic, a siege battle is nothing," Megumin declared, striking a Chinibu pose. "Humph. None of them are a match for me. I'll send them all flying," Anju added, clenching her fists. The girls weren't afraid. With Roy backing them, they weren't intimidated by the Loki Familia. Hestia, seeing their eagerness for battle, was stunned. Where did their confidence come from? The only one who seemed to understand was Liliruka. She hadn't forgotten how Kazara and the others had cut through monsters like grass in the dungeon. "All right, everyone eat up. We're going to the Soma Familia next," Roy announced. Hestia, seeing that he wasn't changing his mind, decided to drop the subject for now. After a hearty dinner, Liliruka led them to the Soma Familia's base. "Lily, you're back. How was your haul today?" "Huh? Why did you bring these people?" As soon as they arrived, several men surrounded them. These were the men who usually bullied Liliruka, demanding money and valuables whenever she returned from the dungeon. Liliruka, seeing them, hid behind Roy. "What's going on, Lily? Brought some friends for backup? Ha ha ha, that's hilarious. Who are you? What do you want?" The Soma Familia members, used to acting with impunity, didn't recognize Roy and Hestia as gods. "We're here to see Soma." "Call him out," Roy said, not bothering with pleasantries. "You think you can just see Soma-sama whenever you want? Get out of here." Two of the men continued their taunts. But the third one seemed to have realized something. He tugged on their sleeves and whispered, That's a god." "What?" The other two men froze, cold sweat trickling down their backs. They had just disrespected a god. They were dead. Koina. Roy wasn't going to tolerate their insolence. "Yes, Daddy." Koina instantly understood. She had been wanting to kill these people for insulting Roy. Koina vanished in a flash. She reappeared beside Roy. The next moment, the three Soma Familia members' heads were separated from their bodies. Liliruka gasped, her eyes wide with shock, but a sense of satisfaction filled her. These men, who had tormented her for so long, were dead. It was good. But she was also afraid. They had just killed members of the Soma Familia. Would Soma let this go? "Let's go." Roy, not even glancing at the corpses, walked inside. Soma Familia Captain Xanis Lustra saw what had happened but didn't stop Roy. Roy soon found Soma in a wine cellar. Soma, dressed in white robes, his long hair covering his eyes, looked disheveled. "Who are you?" he asked, annoyed by the interruption. He had been brewing wine. "God Soma, I'm a newly descended god." "Call me Roy," Roy said with a smile. "And what do you want?" Soma asked him passively. This child, Roy pulled Liliruka forward. "I want her. She's been bullied in your familia and doesn't want to stay here any longer. Can you release her?" "Soma, you're her god. You should be protecting her, not letting your familia members bully her," Hestia added. "Hestia?" Soma finally noticed Hestia. He, of course, knew her. Two gods had come to him for a single familia member? He couldn't refuse. "Very well, I." Just as Soma was about to agree, the captain of the Soma Familia, Xanis Lustra, approached and knelt. Soma-sama, Lily is a valuable member of our familia. We can't just give her away. Soma frowned. He had entrusted the management of the familia to Xanis, not expecting him to challenge his decision, especially when he was about to agree to the other god's request. It was a blatant display of disrespect. While Xanis outwardly showed respect to Soma, he secretly held him in contempt. Xanis, stand down, Soma said calmly. Soma-sama. A familia member disobeying their god? Are you tired of living? Roy sneered at Xanis. Xanis glanced at Roy, then at the uncollected corpses outside, and a shiver ran down his spine. He stood up and, without even acknowledging Soma, ran out of the cellar. Soma watched him leave, his disappointment in his familia growing. Soma, you should manage your familia better. Leaving them to their own devices will only lead to more problems, Roy said with a smile. Soma nodded, though he wasn't good at managing people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let Xanis act with such impunity. He wasn't blind to his actions, he simply didn't know how to deal with them. Lily, come here. Soma beckoned Lilaruka. Lilaruka hesitated, then, seeing Roy's encouraging smile, approached Soma. Soma released her from her blessing. Lilaruka was free. Then we won't disturb you any further. Goodbye, Roy said, and they left the Soma Familia's base. No one dared to stop them. Roy, what now? Hestia asked. It was late. They needed to find a place to rest, especially since Kazara and the others were tired from their dungeon excursion. Let's go to that abandoned church you mentioned. I'll renovate it, Roy said with a grin. But it's so late. Don't worry. It won't take long. They soon arrived at the dilapidated church. Hestia, close your eyes. I have a surprise for you, Roy chuckled. Why? Hestia asked, confused. Just close your eyes. Fine, Hestia reluctantly complied. Roy waved his hand, and a magic barrier enveloped them. The church began to transform under his power. Within moments, a magnificent castle stood before them. He sensed the surroundings. There was no reaction. It seemed his power was different in this world. He could use his magic without being detected. This discovery pleased him. All right, Hestia, you can open your eyes now. Okay. Hestia slowly opened her eyes. A golden castle, like an imperial palace, stood before her. This. She was stunned. She had closed her eyes for just a moment, and the abandoned church had become a castle? It was unbelievable. Wait a minute, her belongings were still in the basement. Hestia's face fell. Let's go inside, Roy said, leading the way. He was used to living in a castle. It felt right. While the exterior was that of a castle, the interior was modern and comfortable. Roy, you haven't explained how this castle appeared. Hestia called out, hurrying after him. Your room is on the second floor, Hestia. And don't worry, your belongings are there as well, Roy said, pointing towards the second floor. Hestia's cheeks puffed out. He had discovered her secret. She wanted to disappear. But when she reached the room Roy had indicated, she was stunned. Not only were her belongings there, but the closet was also filled with beautiful dresses, outfits, and even lingerie. Chapter 293, Updating Kazara's Stats All SSS Rank, to the Dungeon. Roy, the clothes in my room, Hestia said, rushing into the living room, out of breath. A penniless god like her had never seen so many beautiful clothes. Calm down. Take a deep breath, Roy said, sipping his tea. There are so many beautiful clothes in my room, Hestia said, flustered. They're for you, Hestia. Don't be shy. Go try them on, Roy said with a wave of his hand. He had prepared everything when he created the castle. Each girl had a complete set of daily necessities, including clothes. Thank you, Roy. Hestia beamed and hurried back to her room, eager to try on her new clothes. After a while. Kizara, Yukari, come to my room. Lilaruka, you too, Roy called out. The girls exchanged glances, then followed him. Megumin, do you know what Roy-sama wants? Lilaruka asked Megumin nervously. Megumin covered one eye with her hand, the other glowing red. Roy is probably going to do something. Perverted, she said seriously. What? Lilaruka was terrified. You know adult things. Roy is a lowly loving pervert, Megumin whispered in Lilaruka's ear. Megumin, what are you saying? Roy suddenly appeared behind Megumin, pulling on her ear. How dare she slander him? Ow, ow, ow. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Megumin yelped, struggling to break free. But Roy held her firmly. Don't spread rumors. I just want to update your blessings, he said, flicking her forehead, then turned to Lilaruka. Since you've decided to join my familia, I need to bestow my blessing upon you. You know that, right? Lilaruka realized her misunderstanding and blushed. Yes, Roy-sama. Alright, come in. Megumin and Lilaruka followed him into the room. Lilaruka, come here. I'll bestow my blessing upon you. You're officially a member of my familia now, Roy said, smiling at Lilaruka. Lilaruka approached him without hesitation and removed her top. Roy-sama, she said shyly, sitting down opposite him. Yes? Roy smiled and nodded, then began the ritual. Lilaruka's stats were quite good, especially her ability to use transformation magic. She could transform into anyone. Even Xanis Lustra, the captain of the Soma Familia, had coveted this ability, trying to prevent Soma from releasing Lilaruka. Soon, the blessing was complete. As the mark on her back glowed, Lilaruka officially became a member of Roy's familia. Congratulations, Lilaruka. You're one of us now. We're best friends now. That's right. Megumin, Yukari, and Enju congratulated Lilaruka. Thank you. Lilaruka was touched. This was the first time she had felt so accepted. It felt like she finally had a home. Alright, who's next for a status update? Roy asked. I'll go, Kizara said, seeing that the other girls were too shy to volunteer. As the captain of Roy's familia, she had to set an example. Kizara turned around, exposing her bare back, and sat down opposite Roy. Kizara Wani-san is so beautiful. Lilaruka said enviously, admiring Kizara's flawless skin. She's alright. I'm just as good, Megumin said with a smug grin. Megumin, you're flat-chested, Yukari said bluntly. Megumin glared at Yukari and lunged at her, and the two girls began wrestling playfully. Roy sighed, then updated Kizara's stats. As expected, all her stats were maxed out at SSS rank. Strength, SSS 999. Agility, SSS 999. Endurance, SSS 999. Dexterity, SSS 999. Magic, SSS 999. Even her magic stat was maxed out. Of course, as a devil, it was only natural for her to have high magic power. But Kizara didn't know any magic spells. Her development ability was swordsman. Kizara, how do you feel? Roy asked, curious. Reaching max stats and leveling up to level 2 should have significantly increased her strength, but Kizara was already powerful. He wasn't sure how much of a boost she would receive. I feel much stronger, Kizara said, examining herself. She hadn't expected to gain so much from leveling up to level 2. She had already been at the peak of high class, but she felt even stronger now. She was one step closer to becoming ultimate class. Good, Roy said, also sensing the increase in her power. It was a significant boost, even for a high class. Megumin, overhearing their conversation, grinned. Ho ho ho! It's time for the Great Crimson Demons Clan's #1 mage to shine. My growth will astound you. Roy rolled his eyes at her Chinibu antics. Come here and take off your clothes. Despite her usual boisterousness, Megumin was a bit shy in front of everyone. She reluctantly approached Roy, who helped her remove her top. Roy updated her stats. As expected, all of Megumin's stats were also SSS rank. Although a mage, her dexterity and agility were also maxed out, which amused Roy. And her development ability was magic, which was undoubtedly explosion magic. Next. Daddy, me. Koina jumped into Roy's arms. Roy gently updated her stats. As expected, Kohina's stats were also maxed out. Then, it was Enju and Yukari's turn. All 5 girls had maxed out stats and had leveled up to level 2. Lilaruka, watching this, was stunned. She had never seen anyone with max stats, let alone 5 people. Even A-rank stats were rare. She had been worried about the war game against the Loki Familia, but now she was confident. Leveling up from level 1 to level 2 with max stats in a single day? That was terrifying. Perhaps they really could pull off a miracle. Meanwhile, in another room, Hestia was bestowing her blessing upon Kurumi. As soon as the blessing was complete, Hestia was stunned. Kurumi, a newly registered adventurer, already had a development ability. Her other stats were all A-rank, the lowest possible, and she had no skill points yet. But her development ability was speed. This ability didn't require magic and could be used at any time to increase her speed. It was likely due to Kurumi's rabbit genes. Kurumi, you're amazing! Hestia exclaimed, hugging Kurumi tightly. She was incredibly pleased with her new Familia member. I'll bring back lots of magic stones for you tomorrow, Hestia-sama. Kurumi said, beaming. That's wonderful. They played around on the bed for a while, then fell asleep. The next morning, Hestia was woken by the smell of food. She got out of bed and followed the aroma to the kitchen. Good morning, Hestia-sama. Enju and Kurumi were preparing breakfast. Kazara wasn't good at cooking, so the task had fallen to Enju and Kurumi. And they were surprisingly skilled. Enju, Kurumi, you're making breakfast? Hestia asked, sniffing the air. Yes. Hestia-sama, please wait. It'll be ready soon, Kurumi said with a smile, then turned back to her cooking. Hestia left them to it and went to the living room. Kazara, Megumin, Yukari, and Lilaruka were already awake and dressed, ready to depart for the dungeon. They would go to the 20th floor using a shortcut, then explore the deeper levels. Breakfast is ready. Roy, Hestia-sama, come and eat. Enju and Kurumi called out. The 2 little girls, sharing similar genes, got along well. After breakfast, Roy and Hestia saw them off at the castle gate. Kurumi, be careful in the dungeon. I will, Hestia-sama. Kurumi nodded. Kazara, take care of Lilaruka and Kurumi. Don't worry, we will, Kazara said, holding Lilaruka's hand. Good. Roy smiled. The girls set off for the dungeon. Chapter 294, Roy Familia's Dungeon Trip, Encounter with Freya Familia. I hope they come back safely, Hestia murmured, praying for their safe return as she watched them leave. Don't worry, they will, Roy chuckled, patting her head. Okay. Hestia nodded. There's a gathering of gods tonight. Would you like to go? Roy asked. A gathering of gods? I haven't seen many other gods since I arrived in Orario. It might be interesting, Roy mused. I'll go with you, Hestia said. She usually avoided such gatherings. As a penniless god, she was often the target of ridicule. But she couldn't let Roy, her junior, go alone. And she had new, beautiful dresses now. She wanted to show them off to those who looked down on her. Thank you, Hestia, Roy smiled. Hestia blushed. Let's go back and wait for them. I'm sure Kazara and the others will bring back even more magic stones tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing how Kurumi does, Hestia said, nodding eagerly. Meanwhile, Kazara and the others. The 7 girls followed a large group of adventurers through a safe passage to the 18th floor. The 18th floor was a safe zone, a bustling town. This is a safe zone. Should we buy some supplies? Lilaruka suggested. She was familiar with the dungeon and knew that adventurers usually stocked up on potions and other necessities before venturing deeper. No, we don't need those low-level potions, Kizara said, shaking her head. They had plenty of high-level potions from the Konosuba World, which was practically their backyard. They didn't need to buy any here. Lilaruka, here. Yukari handed Lilaruka several potions. What are these? Lilaruka asked, looking at the unfamiliar vials. This one heals injuries, this one restores magic, and this one, Yukari explained. Lilaruka was stunned. She had only ever seen low-level potions that healed minor injuries. She had never seen anything like these. Alright, let's head to the 19th floor, Kizara said, not wanting to waste any time. They continued their journey, drawing the attention of other adventurers along the way. After all, a group of beautiful female adventurers was a rare sight. Seeing them head straight for the 19th floor, the adventurers began to murmur. Whose familia are they? I've never seen them before. They just arrived in Orario. They're from the Roy familia. I heard their god challenged the Loki familia to a wargame. What? Does he not know that the Loki familia is one of the strongest in Orario? Apparently, the Roy familia only has those 5 members, and they just registered as adventurers. So they're level 1? That's right. How can level 1 adventurers challenge the Loki familia? Who knows? The adventurers continued their gossip, but Kizara and the others didn't hear them. They had already reached the 19th floor. The monsters here were stronger and more numerous. Lilaruka was worried. But her worries were unfounded. Koina, Enju, Kurumi, you 3 take the lead and clear out the monsters. Megumin, Yukari, you 2 stay in the middle. Megumin, be careful with your magic. Yukari, provide support as needed. Lilaruka, you focus on collecting the magic stones. I'll protect you. Kizara quickly assigned their roles. Okay. The girls nodded. They advanced towards the monsters. Kohina's knives sliced through the monsters with ease. Enju and Kurumi darted through the horde, kicking and punching, every blow a fatal one. Their strength amazed Lilaruka. If the monsters grouped together, Yukari's light magic would obliterate them. Megumin, watching this, felt a pang of envy. Her explosion magic was useless in these narrow corridors. She could only use it in open areas, and even then, she had to minimize its power. Otherwise, the dungeon might collapse. The 7-girl team advanced rapidly, quickly reaching the 20th floor. They could have gone even faster. But Lilaruka was struggling to keep up, busy collecting the magic stones left behind by Koina, Enju, and Kurumi. Every step they took left a trail of magic stones. Any other familia would be overjoyed, but to them, magic stones were common. The monsters on the 20th floor were even stronger. When Koina, Enju, and Kurumi tired, Kizara would take over. This way, everyone got a chance to train. At this rate, they would max out their level 2 stats today. Their relentless monster slaying was witnessed by other adventurers. They were stunned. When had such powerful adventurers appeared in the dungeon? Upon reaching the 18th floor, they learned that these girls had just registered. This news shocked the adventurers who had witnessed their power. They had just arrived in Orario and were already on the 20th floor? And they were cutting down monsters like they were nothing? It was unbelievable. But Kizara and the others were unaware of the commotion they were causing. Roy, why aren't they back yet? Hestia paced anxiously, glancing out the window, but there was no sign of Kurumi and the others. Roy sighed. Don't worry, they'll be fine. But they've been gone for so long. Roy shrugged helplessly. They're back. He suddenly looked out the window. From their vantage point, they could see the streets of Orario. Kizara and the others were walking towards them. Where? Where? Hestia rushed to the window, her eyes lighting up as she saw the girls. They're back. Wonderful. She hurried to greet them, Roy following behind. Welcome back. Hestia rushed towards Kurumi and hugged her. Hestia-sama, I'm back. Kurumi smiled. Welcome back, everyone. Go get some rest and take a bath, Roy said, approaching them. Okay. The girls were exhausted after a day of fighting in the dungeon, even though the monsters were relatively weak for them. They had reached the 29th floor, then returned. After bathing and resting, they went to the Adventurers Guild. First, they exchanged the magic stones for Valis, then they would head to the Hostess of Fertility for a celebratory feast. Roy-sama, your magic stones are worth 8,250,000 Valis, Ina announced. The guild hall fell silent. 8 million Valis? The adventurers were stunned. Exchange them all for Valis, Roy said. Yes, Roy-sama. Ina quickly processed the exchange. Roy and the others left the guild with their earnings. Here, Hestia, this is for you, Roy said, handing Hestia a bag of Valis. Wow! So much money! Hestia's eyes sparkled. This is too much. It was over 1 million Valis. You should thank Kurumi for that, Roy chuckled. Kurumi, you're my lucky star. Hestia hugged Kurumi tightly. They went to the Hostess of Fertility. The Loki Familia wasn't there this time. But to Roy's surprise, the Freya Familia was present. Freya was the goddess of beauty and love, possessing unparalleled beauty. But to Roy, she was average. Many girls in his harem were more beautiful. The two familias passed each other without acknowledging each other. Seer led Roy and the others to a table. Seer, prepare a feast for us. Certainly. Seer smiled and left to prepare their order. While they waited, Hestia asked about their dungeon adventure. Roy also listened with interest. Chapter 295, The Gathering of Gods, Meeting Hephaestus. Confronting Loki. While Roy and the others chatted, Freya observed Roy with curiosity. What makes this man confident? He's challenging the Loki Familia to a war game? She couldn't understand. Freya-sama, should I test them? Otter, the captain of the Freya Familia, asked. Otter was the only level 7 adventurer in Orario, known as the city's ultimate weapon. He was devoted to Freya, a calm and collected warrior with unwavering loyalty. No. He might have some hidden cards. But he can't defeat the Loki Familia, Freya said. She knew the Loki Familia's strength well. The Freya and Loki Familias were the two strongest in Orario. If anyone could defeat the Loki Familia, it would be the Freya Familia. Not some unknown, newly arrived Familia. Meanwhile, Roy and his Familia were enjoying their meal, Megumin's Chunibu antics providing endless entertainment. After their feast, Kizara, you all head back. Hestia and I are going to a gathering of gods, Roy announced. Okay. Kizara smiled. Daddy, I want to come with you. Koina clung to Roy, refusing to let go. Koina, be a good girl. We'll be back soon, Roy said, patting her head. Okay, Koina reluctantly agreed. Kurumi, you should go back too, Hestia said to Kurumi. After a brief farewell, Roy and Hestia left for the gathering. Hestia, you're here. Good evening, Hestia. As they entered the hall, several gods greeted Hestia warmly. Despite being penniless, Hestia was on good terms with the other gods. But when they saw Roy, their expressions changed. They recognized him as the god who had challenged the Loki Familia. Where does that kid get his confidence? He's challenging the Loki Familia to a war game? I heard he was just annoyed by a Loki Familia member. That's reckless. I don't think the Roy Familia is that weak. I heard they injured a level 6 adventurer from the Loki Familia. That must have been a fluke. I heard the Roy Familia members are all new adventurers. How could they injure a level 6? The gods gossiped amongst themselves. Roy and Hestia ignored them and found a table. Roy, you probably don't know any of these gods. Let me introduce you. That's Mayak, Hestia began, pointing out the various gods. They chatted and enjoyed the refreshments. A tall figure in a red dress entered the hall. Hestia's eyes lit up. Come on, I'll introduce you to my best friend. She excitedly pulled Roy towards the figure. Hephaestus. Hestia called out, then rushed forward and hugged the woman. The tall woman in the red dress was Hephaestus, the goddess of the forge. And Hestia's best friend. You, Hephaestus chuckled, pushing Hestia away gently. Then, noticing Hestia's dress, she asked, Hestia, you're actually wearing a dress? Roy gave it to me. Hestia said, blushing. Oh. Hephaestus turned her attention to Roy. She was instantly intrigued. His aura was different from the other gods, more mysterious. Hello, I'm Hephaestus, she greeted him. Hephaestus, I'm Roy, Roy replied with a smile. I heard you challenged the Loki Familia to a wargame? Hephaestus, often engrossed in her forge, wasn't always up to date on current events. That's right, Roy confirmed. Hephaestus, seeing his confident demeanor, was puzzled but didn't question him further. She wasn't one to pry. Thank you for taking care of Hestia. We help each other out, Roy said with a shrug and a smile. I doubt Hestia has been much help to you, Hephaestus chuckled, knowing Hestia well. Hey! Hestia protested, then realized that since meeting Roy, she had been the one constantly receiving his help. She hadn't done anything for him. A wave of gratitude washed over her. Freya approached them. Hestia, Hephaestus, you're here too, she greeted them with a smile, then turned to Roy. Hello, I'm Freya. I doubt anyone doesn't know you. Freya, call me Roy, Roy replied with a smile. Roy, I don't like her, Hestia whispered in Roy's ear, loud enough for Freya to hear. Oh, really? Roy chuckled. Hestia and Freya didn't get along. After all, one was a pure maiden goddess, the other a promiscuous one. It was natural for them to clash. He preferred Hestia. Freya could go play elsewhere. Freya, a flat-chested woman, Loki, approached them. Ha! Loki's eyes widened as she saw Roy and Hestia. Her expression changed, then she smirked. Well. Pint-sized goddess, you're actually wearing a dress. Humph. Why shouldn't I wear a dress? You, airport, Hestia retorted. Loki's eye twitched at the insult. You little. Airport. The two goddesses bickered. Roy could tell they were actually on good terms. Otherwise, Loki wouldn't engage in such playful banter. Whatever. I'm not arguing with you. I heard you're staying with his familia? You'll be homeless in a month, Loki said with a dismissive wave of her hand. What? You? Hestia understood instantly. If Roy lost the wargame, Loki would take everything he owned and banish him from Orario. Hestia would be homeless again. But this time, she had money. You're quite confident, Goddess Loki, Roy chuckled. Against a newbie like you? Of course, Loki scoffed, cleaning her ear with her finger. I suggest you take this seriously. Otherwise, you'll regret it, Roy said with a shrug. Heck, you're quite the talker. Loki was amused. No god had ever spoken to her like this. Kid, I wasn't planning on banishing you from Orario, but now I'll have to punish you. Loki said. Oh? I won't banish you, but your familia, and everything you own, will be mine. Including you. Roy said. Ha ha ha. You're quite bold, kid. Loki's eyes narrowed. Taking her familia and everything she had built in Orario? That was a serious challenge. Fine. If you can do it, I'll submit. But if you fail, I'll leave Orario and never return. Deal. Deal. Within moments, they had set the stakes for the war game. If Loki lost, everything she owned would belong to Roy. If Roy lost, he would leave Orario and never return. The surrounding gods gasped. This was a big deal. If Roy lost, it wouldn't be a major event. But if Loki lost, it would change Orario forever. Roy, how could you make such a bet? Hestia asked, worried. Don't worry, I'll win, Roy said confidently. He was certain of his victory. Humph. Loki scoffed and laughed. She was also confident. After all, he was just a newbie. She had investigated Roy and confirmed that he had just arrived in Orario. She didn't see how she could possibly lose. You're brave, challenging the Loki Familia to a wargame, Hephaestus said, looking at Roy with interest after Loki left. It seems you don't believe I can win. How about a bet? Roy chuckled. Oh? What kind of bet? Hephaestus was intrigued. Chapter 296, An Agreement with Hephaestus, Hestia's Astonishment. If I lose, I'll give you a divine weapon. If you lose, you forge a weapon for my familia, free of charge. How about it? Roy asked, folding his arms and smiling. A divine weapon? Hephaestus's interest was piqued. That's right. A divine weapon crafted with techniques you've never seen before, Roy said confidently. Hephaestus was tempted. As a goddess of the forge, she was always eager to learn new crafting techniques. How many members are in your familia? While interested in the divine weapon, she wasn't going to be tricked. If his familia was large, she would be at a disadvantage. Not many. Just 7, Roy replied. Hestia, hearing this, was momentarily confused, then she realized that Roy had included Kurumi. This meant Kurumi would also receive a weapon crafted by Hephaestus. Hestia was excited. Very well. It's a deal, Hephaestus agreed. His familia wasn't large, so the deal was fair. Deal. Roy smiled, shaking her hand. It was a win-win situation for him. The gathering soon ended. Roy and Hephaestus had enjoyed their conversation and had become friends. Hephaestus even offered to forge weapons and armor for his familia in advance. Roy, of course, wouldn't refuse such a generous offer. Back at the castle, Roy told the girls about the new equipment, and they were overjoyed. While their current gear was decent, it was nothing compared to weapons crafted by the goddess of the forge. Wait, even I get one? Kurumi asked, surprised. She hadn't expected to receive a gift, since she wasn't part of Roy's familia. Of course, Kurumi. You should thank Roy for this, Hestia said, hugging Kurumi. Thank you, Roy-sama. Don't mention it. We're family, Roy said with a wave of his hand. Hestia blushed at his words. Familia members were considered a god's children. So, did that mean she and Roy were? Normally, after acquiring some wealth, Hestia would move out and establish her own familia base. But she didn't want to leave. Perhaps she didn't want to deal with the hassle of managing a familia, or maybe she simply enjoyed being here. She had everything she needed, everyone was kind to her, and her familia was hardworking. Hestia decided she wasn't going to bother with managing a familia on her own. Roy is the best, she thought, then hugged him impulsively. Hestia was a pure and innocent goddess. She was affectionate towards those who were kind to her. Roy chuckled and patted her head. That evening, Roy and Hestia prepared to update their familia stats. Kazara, take off your clothes, Roy said with a grin. Kazara, who had been smiling, blushed but still removed her top, exposing her bare back. Roy updated her stats. Strength, SSS 999. Agility, SSS 999. Endurance, SSS 999. Dexterity, SSS 999. Magic, SSS 999. All of Kazara's stats were maxed out again. That was terrifying. This wasn't level 1 anymore. She was level 2. Reaching max stats again in a single day was unbelievable. Kazara Wani-san is so amazing. Lilaruka exclaimed, her eyes filled with admiration. Heh, Lilaruka did well today too. I'm sure your stats have improved, Yukari said encouragingly. While Lilaruka was a supporter, Kazara had deliberately weakened some monsters for her to finish off. This allowed Lilaruka to gain experience and level up. Really? Lilaruka was excited. She wanted to know how much she had improved. As a supporter, she was still a level 1 adventurer. She would be overjoyed if she could reach level 2. Kazara, how do you feel? Roy looked at Kazara, who had leveled up to level 3 with max stats. How much stronger had she become? I feel significantly stronger. I'm at the peak of high class level. If I level up again, I might even reach ultimate class level, Kazara said excitedly. Hearing Kazara's words, the girls were surprised. Level 3 had brought her to the peak of high class level? Just one more level, and she would reach ultimate class level. That was incredible. Roy was also excited. It seemed his million ultimate class Familia plan was feasible. Even if he couldn't become a tier 3 cosmic being, he could still establish a powerful presence in Little Garden. Then, he could set his sights on the Shiroyasha and the Halloween Queen. He would become the strongest demon god in Little Garden. Kazara is strong. I don't think I can become an ultimate class at level 4, Yukari said worriedly. She wasn't confident. Humph. Yukari, you lack confidence. Megumin, will definitely become ultimate class at level 4. Megumin declared, striking a Chunibyu pose. Roy's eye twitched. Megumin, you're next, he said, interrupting her. Ha? Megumin stumbled, then reluctantly removed her clothes and approached Roy under his amused gaze. Stop staring at me, you lolicon, she said, her face red, covering her chest with her arms. Roy shrugged. Your flat chest isn't that interesting. Yukari is more appealing, he said, glancing at Yukari. Yukari blushed and looked away. What did you say? Megumin glared at him, her shyness forgotten. I said, Megumin has a great figure, Roy quickly corrected himself. He couldn't keep teasing her. Megumin blushed again and turned around. He updated her stats. Like Kazara, all of Megumin's stats were maxed out. After all, they had been fighting monsters far above their level. And they had been completely dominating them. Rapid stat growth from fighting higher-level monsters was to be expected. But leveling up from level 3 to level 4 wouldn't be so easy. It would likely take more than a day. Roy quickly updated the other girls' stats. Lilaruka was last. While her stats weren't as impressive as the others, they had all reached S rank. This was thanks to Kazara and the others weakening monsters for her to finish off. Since the monsters were far above her level, the stat gains were significant. Lilaruka, your agility and magic have reached S rank. Would you like to level up to level 2? Lilaruka's potential wasn't as high as Megumin or the others, so reaching S rank was already a great achievement. She could definitely level up to level 2 now. Lilaruka was stunned. S rank? Had she heard correctly? Yes. Roy-sama, I want to reach level 2. Please. She eagerly agreed. She knew her own limitations. As a supporter, she couldn't be as strong as Enju or the others. Reaching level 2 with S-rank stats was already a huge accomplishment. Alright, I'll update your stats. Roy nodded and began the process. Meanwhile. Hestia gasped as she updated Kurumi's stats. She couldn't believe her eyes. All of Kurumi's stats were maxed out at SSS 999. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. It was still the same. She was stunned. Such high stats were unheard of in Orario. Of course, if a familia did have a member with such stats, they would keep it a secret. But even so, such power couldn't be hidden forever. Hestia-sama, can I level up to level 2 now? Kurumi asked impatiently. Enju had told her that they had all reached level 2 with max stats. That was the most efficient way to gain strength. She didn't want to fall behind. If she couldn't reach max stats, she would sneak into the dungeon and grind until she did. The bunny girl's obsessive-compulsive nature was showing. Of course. Here, take a look. Hestia printed Kurumi's stats on a piece of paper and handed it to her. Kurumi's eyes crinkled into crescent moons as she saw her stats. All SSS rank. Just like the others. It was wonderful. Chapter 297, Leveling Up to 4, The Apollo Familia's Provocation. Hestia-sama, please level me up to level 2. Kurumi said, turning around to expose her back. Okay. Hestia, still amazed by Kurumi's stats, said excitedly, Kurumi, all your stats are maxed out. Aren't you excited? Of course. It's great that I didn't fall behind Enju and the others, Kurumi replied with a smile. Having one incredibly talented familia member like Kurumi was already a miracle. She had to protect Kurumi. Kurumi, it's wonderful to have you. After updating Kurumi's stats, Hestia hugged her tightly. The two girls giggled and played around. The next day. Kurumi, be careful. Everyone, come back safely. Don't worry, Hestia-sama. We'll be fine. Have a good day. Roy and Hestia saw the girls off at the castle gate. They were going deeper into the dungeon today. To level up, adventurers needed more than just monster-slaying experience. They also needed achievements. And achievements were earned by defeating floor bosses. But floor bosses took several days to respawn after being defeated. And the respawn time was unpredictable, making things complicated. So, today's mission was to hunt monsters and search for a floor boss. They had gone from newly registered adventurers to level 3 in just a few days. If this news spread, no one in Orario would believe it. It was simply too unbelievable. Roy, I don't know how to thank you. Kurumi is such a blessing, Hestia said gratefully. She was still hesitant to tell Roy about Kurumi's maxed out stats. After all, it was Roy who had introduced Kurumi to her. If you really want to thank me, words aren't enough, Roy said with a grin. Then, how should I thank you? Hestia asked, confused. How about a kiss? Hestia blushed. As an eternally pure goddess, she hadn't even given away her first kiss. Was she really going to give away her million-year-old first kiss today? Bend down, she mumbled. The height difference between them was significant. Even if she wanted to kiss him, she couldn't reach. Oh. Roy chuckled, then knelt before her. Hestia didn't hesitate. She closed her eyes and kissed him. Roy smirked and deepened the kiss, his skillful technique leaving Hestia breathless. After a long moment, they finally parted. Roy, how could you? Hestia said, her face flushed, hands on her hips, trying to look angry. But her blushing cheeks betrayed her. She looked adorable. I'm sorry, Hestia. I didn't mean to. Your lips are just so sweet, Roy said, feigning apology. Hestia, who had been about to forgive him, blushed even deeper. Humph. I'm not talking to you. She turned and stormed off. Roy chuckled and followed her. His familia had just been established. Logically, they should be busy. Managing a familia wasn't easy. They needed to acquire weapons, armor, potions, magic scrolls, and other supplies. But Roy's familia didn't need any of that. They had top-tier potions from the Konosuba world, more than enough for their needs. And Kazara and the others didn't need magic scrolls. Megumin and Yukari were their mages. Were there any mages stronger than them? Probably not. Time passed quickly. Kazara and the others went to the dungeon every day to hunt monsters. They also explored Rio in their free time. Within half a month, they had earned enough achievements to reach level 4. That evening, after leveling up to level 4, the girls were celebrating. Roy decided to take them to the hostess of fertility for a feast. Everyone agreed. "Where's Seer?" Roy asked, looking around the tavern. She wasn't there. "Roy-sama, Seer is unavailable today. Please follow me." A girl with emerald green hair, Rio Lion, greeted them. She was also a waitress at the hostess of fertility and a former level 4 adventurer from the Astrea familia. Astrea was the goddess of justice. Her familia known for their righteousness. But they were also disliked by many adventurers. Eventually, they were framed, and the familia was destroyed. Seer had brought the injured Rio to the hostess of fertility, where she became a waitress. "All right." Roy nodded, and they followed Rio to their usual table. "Rio, bring us your specialties." "Certainly, Roy-sama. Please wait a moment." Rio nodded and left to prepare their order. "Kurumi, you're amazing," Hestia said, hugging Kurumi tightly. Ever since Kurumi's status update, Hestia had been beaming, constantly wanting to cuddle the bunny girl. Kurumi sighed. "You've all worked hard. How about some drinks tonight?" Roy offered. The drinks were brewed by elves and tasted like fruit wine, delicious and refreshing. Of course, that was if they drank in moderation. Yay! Megumin cheered. She loved alcohol, just like in the Konosuba world. "Sounds good," Kazara agreed with a smile. The food and drinks arrived. "Cheers!" "Cheers, everyone!" After a toast, the girls began chatting. "I wonder if we can reach level 5 in the remaining half-month." "Time is running out," Kazara said. "I doubt it." "It's not enough time," Yukari said, shaking her head. The higher the level, the more achievements were needed. And the floor bosses respawn too slowly. Sometimes, it took several days for a single boss to respawn. "You've leveled up fast enough. There's no need to push yourselves so hard," Roy said with a smile. "So, for the next 2 weeks, you all get to relax and prepare for the wargame." "I agree." "Kurumi, you should rest as well," Hestia said to Kurumi. Hestia was no longer poor. Kurumi brought back 1,000,000 valis every time she went to the dungeon. Hestia had become quite wealthy. "Okay, Hestia-sama." Kurumi nodded obediently. Enju, Megumin, and Yukari also agreed. They were tired from their dungeon excursions. "All right, another toast." "Cheers!" While Roy and his familia celebrated. A group at a nearby table was feeling less than celebratory. "Hey, aren't those the newbies from the Roy familia? Talking about reaching level 5? They should stop dreaming." A blond boy, clearly drunk, stumbled towards them, his voice loud and mocking. "Hey, their god is here. Don't be so loud." His companions tried to stop him, but he was too drunk to listen. "Isn't that the new god? Challenging the Loki familia right after arriving in Rio? He's just..." Swish! Before he could finish, a knife was pressed against his throat. The chilling killing intent instantly sobered him up. He looked at the knife and wet himself. What are you doing? Insult daddy, and you die. Slash. Koina didn't hesitate. The boy's head rolled to the floor. The tavern fell silent. Chapter 298, Facing the Apollo Familia, an invitation from Apollo. Everyone in the tavern froze, a wave of fear washing over them. Someone had just killed a person in broad daylight. And a member of the Apollo familia, no less. Apollo was known for his vindictive nature and ruthless methods. He would recruit anyone he found appealing, regardless of gender, into his familia. He acted with impunity in Rio. In the original story, he even had his familia attack the Hestia familia in broad daylight, demonstrating his arrogance. With a god like that, it was no wonder his familia members were so arrogant. They had dared to provoke Roy and Hestia while drunk. They deserved to die. This was why Roy hadn't stopped Koina. He disliked the Apollo familia. If they wanted trouble, he would give it to them. Why you killed him? Do you know who we are? The other Apollo familia members at the table looked at Koina with fear. They hadn't expected her to kill without hesitation. We're from the Apollo familia, another one stammered. Anyone who insults Roy dies, Koina said, her blood-red eyes fixed on them, her killing intent clear. The Apollo familia members trembled. By now, most of the other patrons had fled the tavern. A figure stood up from behind the counter. Captain Hyacinthos, help! The Apollo familia members, seeing him, rushed towards him as if he were their savior. Hyacinthos was the captain of the Apollo familia, their strongest member, though only level 3. Idiots! Hyacinthos scoffed, then walked towards the tavern's exit. He wasn't afraid of Koina. He simply couldn't confront her with her god present. He had to inform Apollo. Captain, wait for us. The other Apollo familia members followed him out. Koina, come here and sit down, Roy called out. Okay, Daddy. Koina sheathed her knives and climbed onto Roy's lap. Roy sighed, then held her. Koina, you're always stealing the spotlight, Enju grumbled, pouting. She had also wanted to punish that boy for insulting Roy. But Koina had been faster. It was the same last time. She was always a step behind. It can't be helped, Roy chuckled, patting Kohina's head and feeding her some grilled meat. Koina was utterly devoted to him. She would protect him from anyone who disrespected him, without hesitation. Enju was too kind. She couldn't kill so easily. Roy, aren't you worried about the Apollo familia? You killed one of their members. Apollo won't let this go, Hestia said, her voice laced with worry. That's right. The Apollo familia won't just forget about this, Seer and Ryu, who had joined them, added, their expressions also filled with concern. They clearly disliked the Apollo familia. Don't worry, they won't, Roy chuckled. The girls were speechless. He was still smiling at a time like this? Roy, seeing their expressions, said, we've already provoked the Loki familia. One more won't make a difference. We'll just deal with them both. His casual tone, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, stunned Hestia, Seer, and Ryu. They looked at Kazara and the other familia members, who seemed completely unconcerned. Like God, like familia, huh? Hestia sighed, giving up on persuading him. They had already provoked the Apollo familia. There was no point in worrying about it now. Don't worry, Hestia-sama. We'll win. That's right. I can handle the Apollo familia on my own. Humph. It's time for my ultimate explosion magic. Megumin, using explosion magic is cheating. Kazara, Megumin, and the others tried to reassure Hestia. Seeing their confidence, Hestia felt a bit better. The next day. As expected, the Apollo familia made their move. Two girls were waiting outside Roy's castle. Daphne Loros and Cassandra Ailion. Did I pronounce your names correctly? Roy, alerted by Enju, went outside with the others to meet the two girls. They were members of the Apollo familia. Ha! Daphne and Cassandra were stunned. He knew their names? Yes, Roy-sama. We're here to deliver a message. Daphne presented Roy with an invitation. Roy, already knowing its contents, still opened it and read it. An invitation to a banquet at Apollo's estate? Tell Apollo I'll be there, Roy said. Wonderful. Then we'll take our leave, Roy-sama. Having successfully delivered the invitation, they had completed their mission. Wait. Roy stopped them. Ha! They turned back, confused. After the Apollo familia is disbanded, would you be interested in joining my familia? Roy asked with a smile. What? The two girls were stunned. Just kidding. But if that day does come, you're welcome to join the Roy Familia, Roy chuckled. They exchanged glances, then nodded politely, showing respect to a god. After they left. Roy, Apollo's invitation, it's a trap, isn't it? Hestia said. She knew it would be a banquet of ill intent. Of course. I expected this, Roy shrugged. I'm planning on using the Apollo Familia as a stepping stone to make our Familia famous. Then, more adventurers will join us. There were plenty of skilled adventurers in Orario. Roy wouldn't mind them joining his Familia. Of course, they would have to pass his screening process. He had high standards. With the cursed children as reserves, he wasn't worried about lacking Familia members. All right then. Hestia, while still worried, didn't argue. Let's get some rest. We have a banquet to attend tonight. Roy patted Hestia's head and headed inside. Hestia sighed and followed him. That evening. Hestia, are you ready? It's time to go. Since this was a private gathering, they could bring their Familia members. So, they all went. Kazara, Megumin, and the others were already dressed in beautiful gowns. Only Hestia was still in her room. Coming. Hestia opened the door. She was wearing a low-cut evening gown that accentuated her ample bosom. It was quite a sight. Hestia, you can't wear that. It's too revealing. Go change, Roy said, pushing her back into her room, despite his appreciation for the view. Roy, I think this dress is beautiful. I spent a long time choosing it. Hestia grumbled, though she was secretly pleased that he had noticed. She changed into another gown. This one was better. While her figure was still impressive, it was less revealing. Roy nodded in satisfaction. All right, let's go. Apollo's estate was grand and imposing, his castle vast and opulent. Compared to it, Roy's castle seemed small. But it would be as soon. The ball was already in full swing. Apollo had invited most of the gods in Orario. Those who weren't present had other engagements. Roy and his Familia's arrival drew everyone's attention. Freya, Loki, and other gods were present. But Roy, knowing their disdain for him, didn't bother greeting them. He found a table with Kazara and the others. Most of Orario looked down on him. He wouldn't waste his time on them. Once he defeated the Apollo Familia and conquered the Loki Familia, these gods would come crawling to him. Roy, aren't you going to meet the other gods? Hestia asked. No. You can go greet Loki and Freya, if you want, Roy said with a smile and a wave of his hand. Then I won't go either, Hestia said, nodding. She didn't have many friends among these gods. She couldn't stand Freya, and she and Loki always argued. She was close to Hephaestus, but Hephaestus wasn't here tonight. She was probably busy in her forge. Chapter 299, A Dance with Ace Wallenstein, The War Game with Apollo. Freya approached Roy and Hestia and exchanged greetings. But neither Roy nor Hestia was fond of Freya. Loki, due to the upcoming war game with Roy, didn't bother arguing with Hestia, much to Hestia's relief. The ball soon began. Roy, may I have this dance? To everyone's surprise, Yukari was the first to ask Roy for a dance. Kazara, Megumin, and even Hestia were a bit disappointed. Of course, Roy smiled, taking Yukari's hand and leading her to the center of the dance floor. As the heir to the Lucifuge family, Roy was a skilled dancer. Yukari had also learned to dance. Roy placed his hand on Yukari's waist, and she rested her head against his chest as they danced gracefully. Enju, Hestia, and the others watched enviously. After the dance, Roy asked Enju. Due to their height difference, they looked a bit comical, but Enju was overjoyed. Roy danced with each of the girls. When it was Hestia's turn. Hestia, dance with me. Okay. Hestia readily agreed. They joined the other dancers, and Roy led Hestia through the steps. Hestia, is this your first time dancing? Roy asked, noticing her awkward movements. Yes. I don't really like these kinds of parties, Hestia admitted shyly. As a penniless goddess, she avoided such events. And she wasn't fond of the other male gods. So, this was her first dance. It's an honor to have your first dance, Hestia, Roy said with a smile. What do you mean, first dance? Really, Hestia playfully glared at him. Isn't it? You also gave me your first kiss, Hestia, Roy whispered in her ear, pulling her closer. Hestia blushed even deeper. After their dance, Roy asked Lilaruka. Huh? And me too? Lilaruka was stunned. She hadn't expected to be asked. Of course. We can't leave Lilaruka out, Roy said, taking her hand and leading her to the dance floor. Lilaruka, so close to a god, was incredibly nervous. Her body stiffened. She had never been this close to a god before. She quickly became flustered, her face crimson. She stumbled through the dance, guided by Roy, a dazed smile on her face. Roy chuckled, amused by her reaction. After dancing with everyone, they waited for the ball to end, anticipating Apollo's next move. Roy's gaze fell upon a girl with long, golden hair standing alone on the balcony. She seemed reserved. She had refused every invitation to dance. Is that Ace Wallenstein? Roy smirked. He had encountered Ace several times but hadn't had a chance to speak with her. He approached her. Hello, Ace, he greeted her with a smile. Ace looked up at him, her expression blank. She didn't reply. Roy knew Ace wasn't being rude. She was simply socially awkward. May I have this dance? He asked, extending his hand. Ace, finally reacting, was about to refuse. But Roy took her hand and led her to the dance floor. Ace, do you know how to dance? He asked with a smile. I've never danced before. Then follow my lead. Roy guided Ace through the steps. While initially hesitant, Ace soon relaxed, enjoying the feeling of dancing. It was liberating. Loki, seeing Ace dancing with a god from a rival familia, was furious. But Hestia held her back. Roy and Ace finished their dance. You're a wonderful dancer, Ace, Roy said, giving her a thumbs up. It's my first time, but I enjoyed it, Ace said with a smile. Just as Roy was about to continue their conversation, a man with red hair and a laurel wreath, dressed in a white tuxedo, descended the stairs. It was Apollo, the god of the Apollo Familia. Is everyone enjoying the banquet? He asked, his gaze sweeping across the hall, then settling on Roy. No one answered. They could all sense that Apollo was about to confront the newly arrived god. You, newcomer. I don't recognize your name, but that's not important, Apollo said, his voice laced with disdain. About your Familia member killing a member of my Familia, do you have anything to say? The other gods understood. That was it. No god would tolerate their Familia being attacked. This time, they were on Apollo's side. After all, Roy was a newcomer who had already offended the Loki Familia. Now, he had provoked the Apollo Familia as well. He was practically an outcast. Roy shrugged. A mortal insulted a god. It's only natural for a god to punish them. Isn't that how it works? The other gods couldn't argue with that logic. They were gods. Punishing mortals who insulted them was their right. But Apollo didn't see it that way. The deceased was his Familia member. And a valuable one at that. He had heard that the Roy Familia members were all skilled fighters. Despite being level 1, they could easily kill monsters. Some had even seen them on the upper floors of the dungeon. Apollo coveted such powerful adventurers. He always got what he wanted. You claim my Familia member insulted you, but they're all upstanding individuals. They would never insult a god. Do you have any proof? Apollo said, trying to weasel his way out. There was no proof, of course. And even if other adventurers had witnessed the event, who would dare to testify against Apollo? Enough with the bullshit. Apollo, you want a war game, don't you? Roy scoffed. He wasn't interested in playing games. Apollo was taken aback, then he laughed. Very well. The Apollo Familia formally challenges you to a war game. Do you accept? Of course, Roy said with a smirk. If Apollo wanted to die, he would oblige. The gods, hearing his acceptance, erupted in excitement. He accepted Apollo's challenge? This new god is suicidal. First was the Loki Familia, and now he's challenging Apollo? It seems Loki won't even have to lift a finger. Apollo will banish him from Ororio. Yeah. The gods gossiped, and Apollo's smug grin widened. Apollo, that's not fair. He challenged me first, Loki interjected. What's the problem, Loki? I'll deal with him first, so you don't have to, Apollo said confidently. No, I challenged him first. I should be the one to banish him from Ororio, Loki insisted. There's no need to argue. The Loki Familia is one of the strongest in Ororio, right? I'll deal with the Apollo Familia first, then it's your turn, Loki. Don't worry, neither of you will escape, Roy said, folding his arms, his arrogant demeanor stunning the other gods. They had never seen such a brazen newcomer. Loki and Apollo were furious. He was looking down on them. How about this? I'll have the war game with Apollo in 3 days. That way, you won't have to wait too long, Loki. Unless you want to join us? I don't mind, Roy said, further provoking them. Fine. I'll let you have your fun with Apollo first. I hope you survive long enough to face me, Loki said coldly. Don't worry, he won't live to see your face, Apollo chuckled. The gods were excited. It had been a while since the last war game. This would spice things up. Chapter 300, the war game begins. Yukari's light magic Megumin, the melee mage. The banquet ended in a tense atmosphere. 3 days passed quickly. At the Roy Familia's castle. Everyone, do your best. But remember, don't go all out. Just toy with the Apollo Familia, understand? Before they departed, Roy gave them some instructions, his gaze fixed on Megumin. Why are you looking at me like that? I just want to cast explosion. Do you know how long it's been since I've unleashed my full power? I can't use it in town. I've been holding back for too long. Megumin, flustered by Roy's gaze, clutched her staff, her Chinibu acting up again. If you unleash your full power, you'll destroy the entire city. What's the point of a war game then? Roy said, pinching Megumin's cheeks. Megumin was already incredibly powerful, especially after reaching level 4 and breaking through to ultimate class level. One of the defining characteristics of an ultimate class was the ability to casually destroy a town. And with her explosion magic, destroying a town would be child's play. The Apollo Familia had over 100 members, but their strongest member, Hyacinthos, was only level 3. He wouldn't be able to withstand a single explosion. Is it really that powerful? Hestia, not having witnessed it firsthand, couldn't imagine a single spell destroying a town. It is, Hestia-sama. In the dungeon, Megumin Wanichan couldn't resist and cast a smaller explosion. It almost destroyed the entire cavern, Kurumi explained. What? You're causing trouble again? Roy pinched Megumin's cheeks even harder. Ow. That hurts. That hurts. Megumin wailed dramatically. Shouldn't we be going? Yukari suggested, trying to rescue Megumin. Roy sighed. He hadn't even used much force. Megumin was a good actress. Fine. Let's go. He led them out of the castle. Roy and Hestia soon arrived at the wargame arena. While gods couldn't use their divine powers normally, they could use a special ability during wargames, projecting the event for all of Ororio to see. So you've arrived, Apollo said, approaching them with a smug grin. Enjoy your last laugh, Apollo. You'll be crying soon, Roy retorted. Humph. After I win, I'll not only banish you from Rio but also take all your familia members. Ha ha ha. Apollo laughed arrogantly. Enjoy your arrogance while it lasts. A flicker of killing intent flashed in Roy's eyes. This guy dared to covet his familia? He had initially planned to just send Apollo back to heaven. But now Apollo had to die. Roy ignored Apollo, now a dead man walking. After some preparations, the war game began. It was a siege battle, decided by a lottery 3 days prior. The Apollo familia had spent the past 3 days fortifying their defenses, preparing for Roy's attack. All of Rio was watching. Everyone assumed the Roy familia wouldn't attack directly. But Kazara and the other 5 familia members were already at the city gates. They were going to launch a frontal assault? Everyone was surprised. The Apollo familia had over 100 members and the advantage of defending from behind city walls. A frontal assault seemed suicidal. But Kazara and the others weren't concerned. They were discussing their strategy. Roy told us not to go all out, so everyone, hold back, Kazara reminded the others. Understood. But first, let me open the gate with my light magic, Yukari said eagerly. Go ahead. Kazara nodded. Megumin glared at Yukari. She was stealing her spotlight. It was all Roy's fault for not letting her use explosion. Light of Genesis. Yukari shouted. Beams of light, too fast for ordinary eyes to see, flashed towards the city gate. Before the Apollo familia members on the walls could react, the gate was destroyed. Everyone was stunned. What kind of magic was that? She didn't even chant. And it's so powerful. Are they really level 1 adventurers? This is getting interesting. The Roy familia doesn't seem intimidated by the Apollo familia. Apollo might actually lose. Why do you say that? Idiot, haven't you noticed? The Roy familia is completely unconcerned. They're clearly not level 1, like the rumors say. I see. The Apollo familia is in trouble. Among the gods watching the wargame, some had already noticed something was amiss after Yukari's display of magic. Rumors in Rio claimed that Roy was a new god with a familia of newly registered adventurers. They shouldn't have been able to reach level 2 in just a month. But the Roy familia's performance clearly exceeded level 2 capabilities. Apollo, hearing the whispers, frowned. But he wasn't worried. He assumed it was just a fluke, that one of their mages had reached level 2. His familia had over 100 members, and their captain, Hyacinthos, was level 3. They couldn't possibly lose. Meanwhile, with the gate destroyed, Kazara and the others charged into the city. While the walls wouldn't have stopped them, they had to maintain a low profile. Roy wanted them to hold back so as not to scare Loki. It would ruin the fun. Clang! 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 As they approached the walls, the Apollo familia members attacked. Magic spells and arrows rained down on them. But it was useless. Kazara, at the forefront, casually drew her sword, deflecting all the attacks. Their advance was unimpeded. Fire! Stop them from entering the city. The Apollo familia members on the walls panicked. Their attacks were having no effect. Kazara and the others breached the walls. Apollo familia members swarmed them. Since the Roy familia was attacking head-on, there was no need to defend other areas. They planned to overwhelm them with numbers. Everyone, attack! Don't hold back, even if it means killing them, Kazara ordered, then charged forward. Roy had told them that there were no rules in this war game. It was a fight to the death. If the Apollo familia members survived, it was their good luck. If not, too bad. Of course, Roy had specifically instructed them to spare Daphne and Cassandra. They had potential. He might recruit them into his familia later. Enju and Koina followed Kazara. Megumin, Yukari, and Lilaruka remained behind. Hey! They left us. There's no one to protect us, Megumin shouted. She was a mage. And Roy wouldn't let her use explosion. What if she was targeted? Her outburst alerted the Apollo Familia members, and most of them turned their attention to the three unprotected girls. Target the mage first. It was common sense. Especially an unprotected mage. Megumin, you idiot. Yukari sighed. Megumin always did the most unexpected things. But she was used to it. Light of Genesis. While Megumin couldn't use magic, Yukari could. Her light magic was effective both at range and in close combat. Once unleashed, no one dared to approach. They still remembered how she had effortlessly destroyed the city gate. They didn't want to be next. But there was one exception. A figure broke through the encirclement and charged towards them. Good job. Interrupt her spellcasting. That's right. Once the mage is down, the other two are finished. The Apollo Familia members cheered. Someone got through? Yukari, being kind, hadn't been using lethal force. Her light magic was primarily defensive. This had allowed someone to break through. Take this. Just as Yukari was about to cast a spell, Megumin raised her staff and swung. Clang! A thief, wielding a dagger, had reached them. He instinctively blocked Megumin's staff with his dagger. To his shock, his dagger snapped in two. Then, everything went black. Megumin had knocked out a level 2 adventurer with her staff. Everyone was stunned. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Transmigrated to a Medieval Pokémon World will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if Reincarnated in Bleach as Toshiro Hitsugaya? What if Reborn in Naruto World, continuation? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.